This is KSL, your news specialists at 10.
Good evening. Here's a story just in from Washington County. A brush fire is quickly spreading and causing concern for some homeowners in Hurricane.
Let's go right now to Alex Cabrera, who's been following the story for us from the newsroom.
Bruce and Dini, that fire is burning close to Highway 59. That's the stretch of road that runs between Hurricane and Hilldale going through Apple Valley there. Now, fire crews got the call just after 5 o'clock this afternoon, and they are still on scene fighting the fire, trying to keep it from burning near homes. In the last hour or so, sheriff's deputies and Utah Highway Patrol troopers are helping traffic get through about a 1-mile section of the highway. That's between mile markers 16 and 17. The fire isn't actually on the highway, but there is a lot of smoke in the area, making it difficult for drivers to see in front of them. So far, roughly 600 acres have been burned. Investigators don't know yet what caused the fire. It started near the Angel Heights and Rainbow Canyon subdivisions. Right now, it seems to be burning away from those homes, but crews are still in those subdivisions ready in case winds start blowing the fire back.
Our objectives on this fire is to keep it away from the structures and from the highway. So we're trying to keep it away from the houses on Angel Heights and Hurricane, as well as the Diamond Ranch Academy and other structures on top of the hill and Highway 59.
There are no evacuations in place yet, and it seems the fire is spreading fast. An hour ago, 300 acres were reported burned. Now estimates are at 600 acres. Again, though, that fire seems to be burning away from the homes in those subdivisions, but fire crews are surrounding homes trying to keep the flames away because they know the winds can change and come back towards them at any second. Kevin Eubank is in our weather center right now. And Kevin, we all know down that way winds can start blowing pretty quick. What's it like down there right now?
That's exactly right, Alex. We've had south winds for the majority of the day in southern Utah, and in the Hurricane area right now, I just checked the latest weather network, and we've got 20 to 30 mile an hour south winds. So as that fire is burning, the good news is those winds are actually pushing that fire to the north, and that's outside of the scope of where those particular homes are. Why are the south winds blowing? There's a cold front disturbance coming through northern Utah at 70 degrees in Salt Lake, 95 in Las Vegas. That front will move through parts of northern Utah, bringing some rain for the morning. But when will all those winds stop in southern Utah, and what's the rest of the week look like? We'll have your complete forecast coming up in just a minute.
I was begging for them just to kill me, so I didn't have to deal with it no more.
New tonight, a Magna man beaten with power tools by his 6 roommates explains what really happened this weekend and why he didn't take the law into his own hands. Thomas Chapman was bloodied and bruised from hours of torture that he endured in his own home. He's now out of the hospital. News
specialist Andrew Wittenberg is live tonight in Magna with more from the victim of that mindless assault. Andrew.
Good evening, Bruce and Dini. Chapman spoke with me tonight for about 16 minutes, detailing every moment of that traumatic experience. 16 minutes. That interview was hard to even listen to. He talked about being punched and kicked and cut, even drilled into. He said the seconds went by like minutes, and then at the end of it all, he was able to live through it for 7 hours. Thomas Chapman remembers how it all started.
Put my hands behind my back and stuff, and they handcuffed me with my handcuffs. Next thing I know, I'm getting beat up with my laptop, keyboards, boards, sticks, having knives put in my throat, getting kicked in the ribs, getting kicked in the head.
He says his 6 roommates, now all facing aggravated kidnapping and aggravated assault charges, believed he had stirred up trouble in the neighborhood.
Somewhere, somehow, they got me being responsible for this.
He says Paula Masters led the torture. From 9 o'clock Saturday night until 4 o'clock Sunday morning, they beat him with various household items, first drilling into his chest. Then they tried to staple his mouth and ears closed.
I heard the staple crack. I heard that, but I didn't feel it.
Chapman says around 4 a.m. they figured out he wasn't the one causing trouble, apologized, and let him go, forcing him to leave only in his underwear.
Because I had no intentions of calling the cops. I had no intentions of calling anybody. I was just going to go solve the problem myself.
Fortunately, he didn't take the law into his own hands. He ran to a friend's house nearby and they called police. Chapman says he didn't feel any pain until yesterday, believe it or not, and even harder to believe, he'd only been living in the house with the 6 who assaulted him for a week and a half.
I would have never believed these people would have done this to me. Never, ever, ever in the world.
As for Chapman, he said some of his wounds, the more superficial skin wounds, will heal in time, but some of the deeper wounds, some of the facial bones which were broken in that attack, will simply not ever go back to the way they were before. In Magna, Andrew Wittenberg, KSL 5 News.
My goodness, thanks, Andrew.
A third person who was injured in a fire at an apartment complex last year in Provo has died. Tonight, police are trying to figure out whether Jeanette Spar died as a result of those injuries. If she did, prosecutors could file another murder charge against Yvette Kimber. Spar jumped from a second-story window to escape the fire. She died on Saturday. Kimber has already been charged with 1 count of arson and 2 counts of murder. A mild winter and an early spring may have you feeling an itch. That's because mosquito season has already arrived. The Davis County Mosquito Abatement Team says the bugs are buzzing about 3 weeks earlier than usual. On top of that, warmer weather allowed more of them to survive the winter. Health officials say to start using that repellent spray, and if you can handle it, wear long sleeves for protection.
A Park City woman who went to sell her home found out county records showed she no longer owned it. But when she contacted the bank, they told her they had no record of any sale. News specialist Lori Pritchard picks up this strange story from there.
Georgine Klottfelter says this is the epitome of the mortgage mess. How exactly was her home sold at auction? Yet she was never notified and wasn't really auctioned off, even though there was a trustee's deed showing a sale.
I don't even want to hear the word bizarre anymore because everybody I talk to uses the word bizarre.
Actually, Georgine Klottfelter has a better word for it.
It's stupid. It really is stupid.
Having spent decades in the mortgage finance business, when Klottfelter wanted a loan modification, she thought this was a battle she could manage. In order to be eligible for a modification, she says the bank told her to skip mortgage payments, declare hardship, and go into default. In 3 years, she says she's been approved for 3 modifications.
Chase never followed through on any of those. They never did. They never got back to me with a permanent mod. They never got back at all. It was like, we got to apply all over again.
6 months ago, she was notified she'd been declined.
And I said, how could you decline me when you've already approved me 3 times?
Exhausted, frustrated, and fed up, Klottfelter decided she'd give up and sell her Park City home.
I've never seen anything like this, no.
She hired Karen Curtis to sell the house. Instead, Curtis had a surprise.
So I went back to Georgine and said, did you know your property's been sold?
That is how Klottfelter discovered this trustee's deed showing Deutsche Bank bought her home at auction in July of 2009 for $388,000. Deutsche Bank's name was on the title, listed as the owner.
And you never knew?
I never knew.
But in another strange twist, in March of this year, Chase sent Klottfelter this letter asking her to sign an agreement essentially saying the sale was a mistake and never actually took place. This document claims the trustee's deed was inadvertently recorded after the foreclosure sale had been canceled and offered to restore Klottfelter as being the owner of the property. She refused to sign it. Instead, she hired this attorney and filed a lawsuit last month against the banks and the trustee.
Having been in the business for so many years, I cannot imagine any kind of a real estate sale instrument being drawn up with a name and a price on it and being recorded, and all of this being a mistake.
In the meantime, Klottfelter remains in what she calls the modification mill.
I back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
And that means another loan modification application that is pending with Chase. Klottfelter calls herself a paper collector, sending off thousands of pieces of paper to her mortgage lender.
You feel like you're just standing on one foot, like one of those funny birds in Florida that just stand on one foot all the time.
Klottfelter says she looks back now and there were some clues that things weren't right, like she didn't receive a tax notice for 2010 or 2011. Right now, Chase has stopped any threat of foreclosure. And as we mentioned, Klottfelter filed suit against Chase Bank, Deutsche Bank, and Salt Lake attorney Marlon Bates. We contacted all 3 for a response. We did not hear from Deutsche Bank. Mr. Bates referred us to Chase. We did speak with Chase's spokesperson who declined to comment, citing the pending litigation. Lori Pritchard, KSL 5 News.
Mitt Romney is reaching out to Hispanics, a huge and important block of voters in the coming election. Political specialist Richard Pyatt takes a look at the kind of work Romney may have to do to persuade them, even here in Utah. Richard.
Well, Bruce, tomorrow Mitt Romney will address a group of small Latino business owners, and this is part of a deliberate effort by the Romney campaign to reach out and, in fact, win over this growing part of the American population. It was a show of force at this march in 2006 of Hispanics to the Capitol. The issue was immigration policy back then, a topic the growing number of Hispanics in Utah care about. That population, in fact, has grown to 13% of the overall population, according to the 2010 census, a trend mirrored nationwide. But Mitt Romney is expected to use the economy, not immigration, to woo Hispanic business owners meeting in Washington. His campaign knows this is a potentially significant block of voters, especially in swing states like Florida, Nevada, Colorado, and New Mexico. Within the week, Romney's campaign has sent press releases in Spanish, announcing TV ads and statements on Cuban independence. But Melodia Gutierrez is unimpressed and doesn't think many Utah Hispanics will be either.
He comes across as a person with immense privilege, and with that disconnect from the working class, and especially working class Latinos, I think it's difficult for anybody to connect with him, much less the Latino population.
But unlike states like Texas and California, Hispanic voter turnout is very low in Utah. That's something the state chair of the Utah Republican Hispanic Assembly sees as an opportunity. Marco Diaz argues Hispanics will see other issues ahead of immigration.
Mitt Romney resonates well with Hispanics. Do most Hispanics agree with Mitt Romney's stance on immigration? There are some differences there.
In fact, the Pew Research Center finds immigration below jobs, education, health care, taxes, and the deficit among Hispanics surveyed nationwide last December. The study also shows the Hispanic population is almost evenly split among those who say they're conservative, moderate, and of liberal political views, while the general population reflects mostly conservative and moderate views. So the bottom line is there is opportunity for both parties in the Hispanic population. As a matter of fact, a lot of people feel that the entire election could hinge on the growing group of Hispanics in this country. Reporting live, Richard Pye at KSL 5 News.
After a 38-year career, Bruce Lindsay is leaving. But before he goes, a look back at those unexpected moments in front of the camera. Bruce's bloopers and blunders coming up next.
Glad you like that story.
We continue tonight celebrating the 38-year career of my co-anchor and friend, Bruce Lindsay. From the field to the anchor desk, Bruce has a lot of television experience. And being on live TV can be, let's say, very unpredictable.
He was poised at ABC, as far as I know, maybe for some big things. But he wanted to come back home.
If a picture paints 1,000 words.
We brought him back in '78. I was 30. He was 28.
In those late 70s, the big team was Norse, Weldy, and James. They were triumphant and ruled the news and had huge ratings. And it was really a change in trend here to have someone come in and co-anchor the news. And Bruce Lindsay was that guy.
It was a pretty heady experience to say that it would be Norse, Weldy, James, and Lindsay at 10 o'clock, because I had looked up to these people for a long time. When I was hired to come and be Dick Norse's first co-anchor, the attorney who looked at my contract said, this may not be a good idea. This is a man who, you know, is pretty sure of himself. He's not going to want this upstart kid sharing his scripts. And he, from the word go, was nothing but supportive and encouraging and helpful. I couldn't have asked for more helpful mentoring.
It was a real family and a real friendship, nothing phony about it at all.
Bruce is serious when it comes to his craft.
He's a terrific broadcaster, and he does it all effortlessly. It looks so easy, but it's hard, and Bruce is so good at it.
Bruce Lindsay is the best when it comes to going with the flow. Live television is very demanding and very unpredictable.
Right now, a representative from the fire department is here in the studio.